All right, so for this week's project, we're going to go ahead and finish up this Pioneer RT-909 that we started a video on a couple of months ago. At that time, we'd pretty much determined we had a pretty gooed up capstan belt and two very smushy, nasty, gooed up pressure rollers. So at that point, I sent the pressure rollers off for rebuilding. Knew that was going to take at least 5 weeks, and pretty much received those back a couple of days ago. So we have those, and we have our new capstan belt. So today we're going to go ahead and get this unit finished up. At the time that this unit was taken into my friend's shop, customer was told it could be upwards of about 90 days or so before we get this one completed because of the pressure rollers needing to be rebuilt. So finally we have it all, and we're going to go ahead and get it finished up today. We've already kind of went through all the controls and stuff on this, so I think we'll go ahead and dive right in and start getting the capstans removed and get those cleaned up, and then getting the belt installed and getting us to the point to where we can at least do a playback test, make sure everything is working okay, and then move on to some final record testing. Our intro music this week, we're listening to Dio's 1983 album, Holy Diver. And I can't imagine anyone that listens to this type of music that does not own a copy of this. This was a very solid record from start to finish. And we're going to listen to a little bit of my favorite song off this. This is called Invisible. All right, so we'll pick back up, and what I was doing in the meantime, waiting for the pressure rollers, I went ahead and blew everything out with the air compressor, and I believe in the last video we got the capstan motor mount screws broke loose, so we could easily get that out. So I think the next thing we want to do, I'm going to go ahead and pull this bracket back off. Should be much easier this time since we already heated up those screws and got them loose. And we'll get the capstans out and start getting those cleaned up. But otherwise, the only other thing I'll probably do here is there is a few controls up behind those arms for the switches, and one for the mic, one for the line, and one for the output. So those 3 level controls, we'll want to clean those. But for right now, we're going to focus our attention on the capstan motor and the capstans themselves, getting all the goo cleaned up off of those, getting those oiled and put back in with a fresh capstan belt. So give me a second and let's get this broke down. All right, I'm going to pick back up with you for a quick status update of what's going on here. Basically went ahead and removed the front faceplate of this. It comes apart in 2 sections. There's a smaller top section covering the reels, and then the larger lower section covering up all the controls and the display tubes for the counter and the meters. We wanted to clean those, so we want to get them off anyway, so we can do that. But this is also going to give us our best access to get the capstans out. As for the heads, they're mounted on this one large piece of metal, and there's 2 screws, one on either side here, that hold this entire piece directly to the front of the unit. You do not want to touch any of these screws. These are all the azimuth and alignment screws. As long as you don't mess with this, you won't have any problems with it. But removing these two screws, these are fixed in place. The whole piece basically just swings up, comes around and mounts like this. And taking those two screws out, there's no alignment of those. They're totally fixed in place. And this is also going to give you your best view of cleaning the heads and getting the heads cleaned up, but it also gives you access to get to the cap stands. And basically what holds the cap stands in place is going to be these little rubber retaining washers. They sit in a recessed area in the back of the cap stand. You'll kind of carefully pull these out. I used a pair of hemostats to do it, and once you get them out, then the cap stands are free to go all the way through the back and you can remove them. These appear to be in pretty good shape, but you'd want to be careful taking these out because I'm sure they are frail, even though these look to be and feel pretty good. So once you get those out, then you can get your cap stands out. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to go ahead and pull the cap stands out through the back, get those cleaned up, and then we'll start doing a little miscellaneous cleaning through here and start assembling everything back through the front. So give me a moment for that, and we'll pick back up. All right, so I'm picking back up with you. This is going to be day number 2. And when we left off yesterday, basically went ahead and got my cap stands cleaned, oiled, and reinstalled back into the unit. I actually even started doing a little cleaning on some of the rollers. I removed these caps and cleaned up the rollers, oiled, and put those back on both sides. And then from that point, I had forgotten that I even had yet another problem I needed to address. And of course, that's with the sticky pressure roller arms. Obviously, we don't have any snapback. The grease is kind of hardened on these arms, and so these are going to have to be removed. So that required moving the mounting piece that goes over here away, and I went ahead and took this display tube board away to get it out of the way, and that way we have better access to that. So the way that these are still moving leads me to believe that I should be able to wiggle it off without having to heat it up with a pyro pen. So I think what we're going to do in this clip is let's go ahead and attempt to get one of these off here. And we have a spring that's got a little bit of that factory glue on it. So let's get a pick and see if we can get that off. And that didn't fight too bad. Let's go ahead and get this glue kind of out of the way. Let me see what you can see. Let's see here. I'm sure we can probably get that clip off there without removing this glue, but I like to get it out of the way so I'm not messing around with it. And so the next step, we're going to take this C-clip off right here, because that's going to free up these arms, and each one of these rollers or these arms have another little linkage that goes to the solenoid that drives it up. So let's see if we can get that off. And try not to drop it down inside the mechanism. It looks like there's a little washer there, so let's get that. Definitely do not want to bend on these. See if we can get them to the point to where we can get it loosened up a little bit. And it's probably going to require this one coming all the way off. And each one of these will have a little plastic washer too. There we go. That wasn't too bad. And this obviously is the one that's frozen. So we're going to have to wiggle it off. And then nice and easy. And so you can feel how dry and sticky that post is versus this one. This one's just dry, but not sticky, and this one's sticky. So I'm going to go ahead and clean these up, get the post re-lubricated. And up in this area, you can see all that's doing pretty good. But we'll put a little grease here and get that taken care of. So I'm going to go ahead and work on this a little bit, and then I'll pick back up with you when I got it all taken care of. All right, so I'm picking back up with you. It's going to be about a half hour later. Went ahead and got everything kind of tidied up in the mechanism. Went ahead and lubricated both of these posts, main ones. Went ahead and removed these arms off of the main arms and lubricated them. And now we have everything kind of snapping beautifully, just the way it's supposed to. Continued on with a little cleaning as I went along, and went back over my capstans, went back over anything that could have possibly gotten grease onto it. Got all that cleaned up. This was an awesome opportunity to work on the heads. Got them out here front and center. Can scrub on those with some Q-tips real good, and all the little places that the tape comes into contact with. And so got all that taken care of as well. Didn't really see a need here, but went ahead and checked into this, put some new grease down, took the clip off this one and edged it out just a little bit so I could get a drop of oil in there. But all that's looking real good. So now it's going to be the reassembly process, going ahead and putting all this back together. And I think from that point, we'll put the video on pause. I'll go ahead and start rebuilding the front of it, get everything back together. And as far as the capstan belt is concerned, I think it's very straightforward. Go ahead and get that put on, and we'll pick back up with this, trying our first playback to see how that's going to go. But if you have one of these are very intense. It's intense to take it all apart and put it back together. Best thing I can tell you, if you've never done it before, you would definitely want to take some pictures with your phone, and you want to put piles, put things together that come off to make sure that they go back the same way that they came off. Most every one of these arms or any of that always has some kind of a plastic washer that goes with it. So I think we'll go ahead, I'm going to go ahead and get it all put back together, and then we'll pick back up working on our first playback test and mechanism test. All right, real quick, let's take a final look before we put the face and everything back on it. Got the head assembly all put back together, display assembly for the tape counter, all that back in place. I even got the capstan belt installed. We'll take a look down in there. And these are very straightforward to install. Basically, the pulley of the capstan motor itself is going to sit down on top of the belt in between the two capstans. I don't think the camera will pick it up, but at the back of each one of those capstans there is a ball bearing that you'll want to make sure you don't lose when you pull the capstans out. And other than that, I think we're in good shape here. So I'm going to go ahead and get the front put back on it, get the knobs put back on it, and we'll be able to get a good visual look after everything's been done. So give me a moment for that. All right, so we're going to pick back up, running our first initial speed test on this after everything's back together. And this has not been touched. We're on the slow speed now, looking for half of 1,000 hertz, and we're looking at about 501. And if we go ahead and bump it up to the higher speed, regulates that at about 1002, 1001, 1002, well within the margin of error for this. So I'm not touching it. We could tweak it. I don't think there's any need for it. Looks like it's doing very fine, so we're going to leave this alone. Let's go ahead and load up a real play tape and let's have a look or listen at the sound quality of this, but everything's looking pretty good. All right, so we're picking back up. Got our favorite play tape loaded up on the unit and it is working beautifully. We've got excellent high frequency definition from both the right and left channel. Sounding real good here. Checking out a little Ichiku Park by Small Faces. And of course we got very nice record, or excuse me, playback in reverse direction as well. Sounding real nice. Go back to the forward direction here. All right, well, I think the next thing I want to do, let's go ahead and get a blank tape loaded up, and let's do a little recording with this and see what the record quality is going to be. All right, so we're going to go ahead and pick back up, and I'll show you what I discovered about the unit in the record mode. Let me just say that it's always a mystery when you're working on one of these as to whether or not you may develop an audio problem or you had a pre-existing audio problem, because there's no way you could possibly know that with no pressure rollers and no capstan belt. So you almost have to fix the mechanism before you can go any further and find out if you have other issues. Now, we had absolutely beautiful playback, but as for the record, let me show you what I discovered. So let's go ahead, we're going to go ahead and kick it into the record mode. And I've got the 909 going into the mixer, and then I got the laptop dumped into it for an input. Let's go ahead and get something going here. No trouble there. We got good left channel when we go into the mic jack, so that's letting us know right there. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the heads. There was no pinched wire. There was no open gap in the head. None of that. There is no problem with anything like that. So we have an audio problem we're going to have to troubleshoot. So I think the first thing that I want to do is let's get the bottom of the unit off so we can look at the bottom side of the circuit board. We might get lucky. I don't think that there's a loose connection at that left channel input jack, but we could get lucky and maybe that's what it is, but probably not. Very few of these, in the whole time I've been working on these, very few of these had other issues other than mechanical problems. But I did have one that had a problem very similar to this, and I can't remember if it was in playback or record. I was missing one channel in playback or missing one channel in record, and I believe there's a small 6 or 8 pin IC that was causing that problem, and I had that actual part in stock, brand new. So let's go ahead and get the bottom of the unit off, and let's see if we can locate something easy. Let's try something easy first, and then we'll go a little bit more in depth and get the service manual out and have a look at that. So give me a moment for that, and I'll pick back up. All right, so I'm picking back up with you one last time, and this is actually going to be day 3, and we're into this problem of not having any record output on the left channel. And I've spent probably about 90 minutes today working on this, down deep into the pane, got the schematic pulled up, everything rolling here, trying to locate what's going on, but I definitely ran out of time this weekend, so this will probably spill over until next week. And if I don't make an actual part 3 for this, I definitely will post what I have found wrong and what causes the issue. But right now I've got a lot of plates spinning in the air, so we're going to go ahead and put an end to this video for tonight. I want to thank everyone for checking out the video this week. Also want to thank all of the people that have written me and made suggestions and even given me some great tips about working on things. Really appreciate it very much, and appreciate all the new viewers that signed up. So until we catch you on the next one, have a good weekend.